It is PhD application season, which means interviews are right around the corner. If you want to know how you can ace your interviews from a third year PhD student, then keep on watching. My name is Malaya and I'm a third year PhD student and I study genome evolution and I do that all computationally. First things first, you need to truly understand why interviews exist. Interviews are not just a barrier to basically stop you from getting onto a PhD. What it really is them trying to suss out whether you're capable of doing a PhD and whether you're a right fit for the team. Depending on how your program works, you will either have an interview with your supervisor or a separate team. I'm on a doctoral training program, so I actually had multiple rounds of interviews with different kinds of teams. One interview was a technical interview where I had to give a presentation about previous research I had engaged in, and I answered some very specific questions. Another interview I had was more personality based, I guess, but also more transferable skills. So they asked questions such as, name a time when you faced a problem that you were able to resolve. That interview was a lot less pressure. I could have a laugh with them, I giggled with them, it was really, really fun. The technical interview was very serious, very straight-faced. I even cracked a joke and nobody laughed. It was quite mortifying. But in general, the application and interview process shouldn't be that bad. If you're having an interview where your supervisor is there or your potential supervisor, just remember that they are a normal person and they want to know that they're working with normal people. That doesn't mean you have to be plain, you have to be boring, but they just want to make sure that they can have a conversation with you. So in all honesty, the best advice I'm going to give is truly be yourself. I know it sounds very rich, especially coming from someone who's already on a PhD program, but the worst situation you want to find yourself in is being accepted into a program where you haven't been yourself in the interview process. You get onto the program being yourself and you realize that this environment just really is not conducive to who you are and who you want to be. The next piece of advice is to obviously prepare for your interview. So there are plenty of ways for you to prepare. Now we have things like ChatGPT. It's really, really good for you to be able to go back and forth with ChatGPT about your current answers to common questions and see how you can revise it. You can also use that with friends, family members, and see what they think about your answers. But remember that when these questions are asked in your interview, you don't want to sound robotic, you don't want to sound so rehearsed. So make sure when you are rehearsing it, you're doing it in a way that it sounds casual and it sounds conversational. Another piece of advice that I would say is brush up on the supervisor. Look at their recent literature, members of their labs, pieces of work, whether that's literature, conference proceedings, whatever it might be, and just really familiarize yourself with who they are and what they do. It would also be really good if you can communicate why exactly you want to be part of their lab, because I'm sure you're not the only person applying for a position in their lab. They want to make sure that they're giving that position to not only someone who's capable, not only someone they can have a conversation with, but someone who truly and honestly wants it. Many PhD content creators on here will tell you how taxing and difficult emotionally and everything that a PhD is. Hence a lot of people dropping out. So they want to obviously avoid that situation and find people who genuinely want to be here for more reasons than just being called a doctor. Now there are typical questions that almost always come up in every PhD interview, and some of these are: why are you interested in doing a PhD? Why are you interested in doing a PhD at this university or institution? Why this field? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Can you describe a typical day in the life of a PhD student? How will you handle challenges during your PhD? Also, don't be surprised if they do ask you some technical questions. If they ask a question that you don't know the answer to, it's okay to actually admit, oh, I don't know that, but using so-and-so logic, I think my answer is X, Y, and Z. That is a perfect example of an answer for something that you haven't really prepared yourself for, particularly with the technical interviews. They don't want someone who pretends to know what they're talking about. Chances are they've asked you this question because they know the answer in a lot of detail. So you pretending like you know the answer when you truly don't, they can see right through you. Don't attempt it, please. Going back to one of the example questions I had previously given you, make sure you're using STAR method. So that's situation, task, action, result. With the STAR method, it's a foolproof way to make sure you're answering a question in its entirety. A typical question that people always use STAR for is: name a time you were presented with a challenge and how you overcame it. Something people often forget, whether you're on Zoom or you're in person, you need to make sure you're presented well. Make sure your hair is done, you've brushed your teeth, the clothing you're wearing is professional. Although you may not have to wear professional clothes to the lab, just going to an interview with professional attire does make you seem a lot more serious. Be mindful of your body language. If you're sitting there with your arms crossed, leaning back, looking to the side, those are indicators that you're not engaged. Obviously, this is different if you're neurodivergent. If you're comfortable to, it it would be good to let the interviewers know so that they don't misconstrue your body language for something other than what it is. But the things you communicate are not just through your words, it's through your body, it's through your clothes, it's through the way you present yourself, it's through your communication style and your enthusiasm. So make sure you're engaging with them, you're looking them in the eye, smiling, nodding, just generally good vibes. It's easier said than done, and I get caught up with this myself. Try your best to not be nervous. You know, everyone always says make sure you ask the interviewer a question, and don't just ask a very simple question like, oh, what are you looking for in a PhD student? Those are questions you should know the answer for. So try and ask a question that's more interesting, something they've not heard before, that would make you far more memorable. One of the questions I had asked during my interview process was what opportunities I would have to be able to develop X, Y, and Z skill sets that I really wanted to do. Another one would be what opportunities are there to attend conferences or collaborate with other researchers. Then they might tell you about some exciting research going on in their lab currently or near future. Any conferences that people in their lab typically go to. These can be national or international. I think the best questions usually are centered around progress within the lab, how you will be evaluated, and the available resources. You can also now throw some questions in there about the supervisor themselves, because psychologically people love to talk about themselves. So if you can get them to talk a bit more about themselves, they might come away from that feeling more positive about the interview. And lastly, many people apply to PhDs feeling like they're not competent enough, whether that's because they've come straight from bachelor's, they don't have a master's, they've gone to a non-Ivy League or non-Russell Group university and they're jumping to a better ranked university. Maybe they're just applying for a subject that isn't directly what their undergrad was. It doesn't matter what the reason is. You had this interview, they believe in you. You have received this interview because they believe in you. Plenty of people don't make it even to the interview stage. You just need to ace this and you're on your way. Focus on what you can bring to the table as opposed to what you're missing from the table, and things will work out. If it's that you've had a non-traditional route to a PhD, whether that's through a different subject or you've taken a gap year or you've worked elsewhere and you're now finally coming back after a long time, you have a unique perspective. Even if it's straight out from undergrad, there's something unique about you and you need to focus on what that is. They might ask you areas that you feel like you want to improve in. Be honest. After being accepted into your PhD, you don't want to join the lab and then feel blindsided about certain things that you lack and you not feeling like you're supported, but it was because you had led them to believe that you didn't require the support to begin with. Interviewers appreciate self-awareness and it's a sign of a good candidate. But you guys are honestly going to be fine. Good luck with your interviews. I'm sure you're going to smash it. But I will see you in the next video. Bye.